Frances was 28 years old, standing barefoot in her own front yard while a Category 4 hurricane moved toward the coast. Inside the house, her stepfather was pressing silver duct tape over the windows and securing the perimeter. He had just turned the deadbolt, leaving her locked out in the storm. This lockout followed a single question at the dinner table. Frances had asked her stepfather, Roy, where her deceased father's $83,000 life insurance fund had gone. His response was to remove her from the house. Roy established dominance through 16 years of systematic erasure. He took down the photographs of Frances's father one frame at a time until only a wallet-sized picture remained in a sock drawer. He intercepted the mail, slicing open every envelope to decide which information the family was permitted to see. He also isolated Frances from her grandmother, a wealthy real estate developer. Roy changed the home phone number 3 times and returned every letter sent to the house, convincing Frances that her grandmother had simply moved on with her own life. Roy engineered a closed system where he regulated every interaction. By isolating Frances and controlling the flow of information, he ensured his authority was the only measurable reality in the house. The discovery that broke this system happened by accident in a storage room. Frances found a shoebox containing statements for a life insurance policy her biological father had established for her. The documents proved that someone had made unauthorized withdrawals, totaling $83,400. The authorized signer was Roy. Roy had accessed these funds through a power of attorney document signed by Frances's mother. When Frances presented these statements at dinner, her mother looked at the floor in silence. Roy simply pointed to the front door and enforced his authority by locking Frances out in the rain. Frances waited in the yard for 11 minutes as the storm intensified. She had no shoes, no coat, and no leverage in a neighborhood that was rapidly boarded up and abandoned by evacuating neighbors. When an abuser occupies the physical space, controls the bank accounts, and dictates the family history, the victim's position appears entirely hopeless. That hopelessness ended when a neighbor called the grandmother Roy had tried to erase. A sleek black limousine pulled into the driveway, and 73-year-old Vivian Palmer stepped out into the heavy rain. She looked at the house her son had built and said one word: demolish. Roy's 16-year reign operated within a legal void. While he controlled the physical house, the underlying title and trust documents remained entirely beyond his reach. The property was governed by the Palmer Family Trust, established in 1997. Frances's father, Nathan Palmer, purchased the home using funds from this trust. Upon his death, the legal beneficiary status transferred directly to Frances. Frances's mother held a life estate, which gave her conditional permission to live in the home. Roy, however, had no ownership claim and no legal standing. He was an unauthorized guest in a house that belonged to his stepdaughter. Physical occupation did not equate to legal control. Roy had spent 16 years bullying his family inside a structure that he never actually owned. The terms of the life estate required the mother to avoid harming the beneficiary. By locking Frances outside during a Category 4 hurricane, she voided the agreement. This action effectively ended her legal right to occupy the property. Roy had also created a second legal trap for himself. To secure a $35,000 personal loan, he had filed a secret application using the house as collateral. This loan involved 2 major crimes. Roy signed a false property affidavit claiming he was the rightful owner. Furthermore, the co-signer's signature was a verifiable forgery, a stiff attempt to copy his wife's handwriting on a legal document. In a hotel suite, safely away from the storm, the grandmother prepared her countermove. She weaponized these documents, authorizing her lawyer to serve an eviction notice and holding the evidence of the forged loan as leverage to ensure Roy's compliance. Roy's attempt to consolidate power through paperwork actually created the very evidence that destroyed him. He put his arrogance in writing, proving that physical intimidation is entirely useless against a well-maintained paper trail. Roy attempted a final manipulation through social media and an emergency court motion. He launched a public smear campaign, portraying himself as a hard-working man being displaced by a predatory developer. His attorney argued adverse possession, claiming that 16 years of paying taxes and maintaining the lawn granted Roy ownership. This argument fails against a trust property. The law protects the beneficiary's inheritance regardless of who performs the maintenance. The judge dismantled the defense in minutes. He denied the motion, formally recognized the trust's authority, and ordered Roy to vacate the premises immediately. A judge he couldn't intimidate stripped Roy of his control in 4 minutes, ending a 16-year micromanagement of Frances's life. 2 weeks later, the physical reality caught up to the legal one. Roy and Diane loaded her rented truck and vacated in complete defeat. Frances immediately began the restoration. She repainted the front fence harbor blue, erasing the white paint Roy had used and resurrecting the specific color her father had chosen 28 years earlier. She sat on the porch with her father's pocket watch. Despite the cracked crystal and the decades that had passed, the mechanical gears continued to tick, keeping time as they were designed to do. Absolute truth outlasts the noise. The hurricane passed, the abuser was legally removed, and the house remained standing. Because weather is temporary, paperwork